Self-sabotage, do we know what that is? Self-sabotage is, I never do it right. That's self-sabotage, or I'm not good enough. Anybody ever felt like they were just not good enough for something? That's self-sabotage. I can't seem to get this done. That's self-sabotage. You talk yourself out of it before it's already happening for you. And the other word he gave me was revive. Somebody say revive. Revive means to restore to life or consciousness. So many of us, we have life. Life just be lifing. It overwhelms us, and it causes us to become unconscious of things. But today, the reviving fire of the Lord Jesus Christ is here and available for you. And so the Lord is going to revive and restore. What is that he's reviving? He's reviving your faith, your strength, your peace, your desire, your calls. Wherever it is that you need, there is restoring power, okay? So I want to talk about Jonah for just a few seconds. I know y'all looking quiet and y'all quiet, but we going to go out on a high note. We going to praise our way out. We going to pray our way out. We going to shout our way out. We going to have a good time. She just too cute for me. So Jonah, we know that Jonah was a prophet, right? And Jonah was supposed to do something. The Lord told him to go to a particular place and tell this group of people what it is, what the word of the Lord is, right? Jonah decides that he's going to lead to his own understanding, and he decides that he's going to go another way because the call was just too much for him, right? So Jonah 1:3 say, now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, arise and go to Nineveh, the great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. So that means that the Lord seen that they just been doing wicked things. They've been doing all of these things. Sometimes we're in school and it's just a bunch of mess, a bunch of bullying, a bunch of lying, a bunch of backstabbing, a bunch of all of this stuff going on. Like pride, I'm the best player on this team. Nobody's better than me. And sometimes it's true, but it's about your heart posture. You may be the best, but it's all about your heart. Anyway, we're going to bring it down to our terms. So let's just say that the Lord sent Jonah to come and tell y'all straight tripping. Everybody, y'all tripping. You need to get it together. This is not what it's going to be. But Jonah rose up and fled to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. So he decided, I heard what you said. I heard the call. I heard that you told me to go and warn these people, but that's not how I feel. I don't feel like doing that. Not only do I not feel like doing that, I ain't doing it. I'm not doing it today. So I'm going to go down to New Orleans, and he told me to go to Maryland. I'm going to go to New Orleans, and I'm going to go and dip down there and do what it is that I do best, because that's not what I want to do. And so he went down to Joppa. That's where he went, and he found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare of and went down into it to go with them from the presence of the Lord. The first thing that I need you to know, tell your neighbor, today we talking about I'm shaking back real bad. Tell them it's emphasis on the real bad. I'm shaking back real bad, meaning I'm going to get back in the right standing with God. God is going to restore me, and he's going to do it real bad. What young Miami say? What she say? Real bad. That's what she said, right? All right, don't act like y'all don't talk about it outside like that. Y'all talk like that out there? That's what we doing this morning. And so tell your neighbor, I'm shaking back, and I'm shaking back real bad. Good. So when you shake back real bad, some of the things I thought about, well, what are some things that we need to be restored from as a teenager? I thought I put myself in your shoes. Many times, we need to be restored because we give God the deuces. The Lord told you to be over here, and you heard him clearly. He told you, hey, I want you to go tell this girl, you're just so cute today. And you was like, I'm not doing that. That's not what I want to do. He may have told you to go pray for somebody. He may have told you, hey, don't say that. Don't do that. Whatever it is, many of us, we shift before time. Meaning, God is in the center, just speaking. But we move to the left, but that's not where God would have you. The Bible tells us, and we hear people say that God will never leave you nor forsake you. How many of you know that? He's not going to ever, if anybody do the leaving, it's going to be us. And truth is, many of us need restoring because we chuck the deuces to God. Sometimes it just don't feel good. Being a leader, being called, being put on the spot, being put in the forefront, it don't feel good. Why? Because it's pressure. It's a lot of pressure on you. It's a lot of pressure on you. It's a lot of pressure because you're called to a higher standard. And so you just be like, you know what? I may be called to a higher standard in here, but they can't see me out there. So I'm going to go out here and I'm just going to act a fool. I'm just going to do what I need to do. I'm going to go and I'm going to go to the store and somebody coming there and you just cussing and you just doing all of these things. And sometimes we chuck it up to we're just being kids. But we know better. And when you know better, you what? Absolutely. And so sometimes we need restoring because we give God the deuces. We tell him, hey, your walk and your call, it costs too much. That's not something that I want to do. And that's what happened with Jonah. Jonah gave God the deuces. God told him go over here. He chucked the deuces and went somewhere else. And so the Bible tells us in Jonah 1:4, but the Lord sent out a great wind into the sea, and there was a mighty tempest in the sea, so that the ship was like to be broken. Another reason we need restoring is because we totally disobey God and we chuck him the deuces. But what you have to understand about being disobedient, when you don't listen to your parents, when you don't listen to your parents, when you don't listen to that still voice that's in you that tell you, girl, now stop tripping. Don't be that way. Don't act that way. Don't be mean to your friends. Don't act mean to your brother. Get a boy a piece of pancake. You got a whole pancake. Just slice him off a little piece, give him a piece of pancake. Whatever it is, it's disobedience, right? And what we have to know about disobedience is disobedience attracts deadly storms. When you're disobedient, it can cause you to be in a storm that you could have totally avoided. When you're disobedient, not only could it cause you to be in a storm that you could have avoided, it's one thing to be in a storm. It's another thing to be in a deadly storm. Anybody ever been on a cruise? Raise your hand if you've been on a cruise. Okay, so imagine you're on this cruise and you chilling and a boat decide to Titanic you. How you feel? Anybody, tell me. How you gonna feel? Scared? What you got? That's a good one, because I will be hot. Mad. Panic. Time to swim. And I mean, go. Worried. Anybody else? But this is the thing. This didn't even have to be. It didn't even have to be. This is a deadly storm because you disobeyed God. Tell somebody, obedience is important. When you are not in the will of God, you are no longer covered. So when you step out of the will of God, it opens you up to many things that could not have happened if God was protecting and covering you. And he always looking out, because most times, raise your hand, I've never gotten what I deserved fully. Anybody feel like they got what they deserve from the Lord? You do? Good or bad? Both? Okay, take it, she's shy. So I know for me, when I was a teenager and when I was in school, I wasn't a fighter, but I don't mind fighting. I never started mess. I never did any of that. But what I did do was fight everybody else's battle. That was my, what we call toxic trait these days. My toxic trait is, if I see the fight, and it happened to be my people from uptown, I'm from New Orleans, and you're on my block, then I'm jumping in, right? Because when one fight, there we go. And so that was my thing. Fighting was my thing. Mind you, I've been in church my whole life. And sadly, and please don't be like this, everything I ever did, I did it in church. There's always one. Nope, but I had a bad attitude in there. I did not fight in church, but meaning like a lot of the sin that I did it while being up front in leadership as a youth leader. I got pregnant at 16. Just bad. I really didn't have a bad attitude, but I was going to tell you what I thought. I was going to tell you what I thought, and I was going to tell you what I felt. And being a child, I felt like now, what better time is it for me to tell you what I feel? Why I got to wait? And so I got popped in the lips a lot. I got in trouble a whole lot. So some parents would say she's disrespectful. No, I was just very outspoken. I was very outspoken, but a lot of times it wasn't needed to be said. And so these are the things for me. These were some of my things. I started dealing with rejection. I started dealing with abandonment. My dad, when I was younger, he would tell me he wasn't allowed into the house that I lived. He wasn't allowed into my grandfather's house because of a fight. Something happened. I don't remember the story. I was young. Nonetheless, when he came around the neighborhood, he had to park his car outside, and he used to have to go, womp, womp, womp. That's how I would know he outside, because back then, big Sesame Street was a big thing. Anybody watch Sesame Street? Y'all do? Okay, great. Well, the little theme song would come on, so that's how I would know he was outside. And when he would call me outside, he would talk to me, but he would do this one thing. He would say, stay right here on this corner. Don't move. I'm coming right back. But he would never come back to the next day. And so this started creating abandonment and rejection issues for me, because I began to feel like, why you keep leaving me? Most so, why you lying? Because don't tell me stay right here. And I would stand right there. My mama would have to be like, girl, if you don't get your silly self off this corner waiting on your dad, like, he's not coming back today. But his word was his bond, and he broke it. And so when people tell you things and they don't stand by them, it creates little things inside of us. It creates rejection. It creates abandonment. It creates trust issues. It creates all of these things that, and when we're older, we try to figure out, well, why don't I ever believe nothing nobody say? It starts from little seeds, right? And so that was my thing when I was younger. So those things made me angry. They made me upset. And so my acting out was, where's the next fight? Let's roll. That's how I felt. Anyway, back to Jonah. Jonah was not in the will of God because he decided to go the other way. And his disobedience attracted this whole storm. They're on this boat. Now, the Bible tells us that Jonah went all the way down to the bottom of this boat. He at the bottom while the people at the top are suffering. And as a leader, you have to be very careful, because people pay attention to you. You attract people. They listen to you. You may be influential, have a lot of influence, and people listen to you. And sometimes people are reaping the harvest of what you've done as a leader. And that's hard. And that was another reason I used to get in trouble in school, because if I said, I was not writing all of this that you put on the board, then you know what the rest of the class said? I'm not writing it. Why? At that time, I did not understand the influence that I had. So it's very important that as young adults, as kids, we understand the influence that we have. Last night, you got up and you danced. There was a kid that was sitting behind me and kept saying, I can't see him. I can't see him. His mama was sitting around, I can't see the boy dancing. And then he was talking and he was like, I just want to watch him. You know why? Because you have influence. You stepping out the box, and you were the only one that decided to do what your leaders asked. They said dance. You danced. And so now you know every time that little boy comes, you know who he's going to be looking for? He's going to be looking for you, because you have influence. You stood out to him. And that's a lot of us. We stand out to people. We stand out to them. People like us. They want to be around us. They want to follow us even when we don't want them to. And so we have to be very careful. So now when he come to church, he coming for you. He looking. He's not coming for you, but he coming to, hey, I'm going to look for you in the process of being here, because I like to dance. You can dance, and you stood out to me. The other part of that is when you're called to be a leader, I said that you don't get to live for yourself. You have to always remember who and what's connected to you. Who's connected to you and what's connected to you. The ultimate goal, even as a young adult, is to draw people to Christ. That's the ultimate goal. So who in here is not ashamed to I'm just sold out for the Lord? Whether you at school, at the dance, at the game, wherever it is. Who just don't care? Right. So for the people that care, I have a question for you. What is it that you care about? Like, what is it that make you care? Anybody that didn't raise their hand? Go ahead. Everybody heard what she said? She said she can be cheerful, she can be loud, but sometimes she feels like something is stopping her and she just don't know why. So when you feel like something is stopping you from being that person, is it more of, are you shy? Are you a shy person? Kind of shy. Yeah. But you feel like it's a hindrance. You know, like you know that something is stopping you. Okay, anybody else? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. So fear. So fear is something that stop you. Okay, that's a good one. Anybody else? Come on.
And like everybody has that say, like they're allowed to have their opinion on things. I think it's just how you put it out there.
That's very good. She said judgmental. Sometimes it's because people are judgmental, and we live in a culture that nobody don't never leave their phone at home. So that's another thing. Whatever you do, you might be on every social media outlet there is, and in point 2 seconds, it takes nothing, right? And so all of these are great reasons why people may feel hindered in really expressing how they feel about God. But there comes a time when you have to step outside of that and just do it anyway. Sometimes you have to do it with the fear. Sometimes you have to do it with them being judgmental, because the truth is, she just danced to the song. You don't know. They don't know why you're dancing the way you dance. They don't know why you may be screaming for God the way you're screaming. They don't know why you may be approaching the way you're approaching to God, because they don't know your story. Everybody in here have a story. Everybody in here have a story, and they may not know it. So lastly, because I'm going to move forward, you must obey God's word, because our sin and disobedience can hurt others around us. Jonah got on this ship, went to the bottom of the ship, fell asleep, and the boat began to just go crazy like the Titanic did, right? And so as the boat going crazy, the people on the boat trying to figure out who caused this and why is this happening. So they started to ask around. Well, Jonah was at the bottom of the ship. They had to go to the bottom of the ship, and long story, they find out that Jonah was the reason the boat was in turmoil. He was the reason that they were almost losing their life. So Jonah decides to tell them, hey, throw me off the boat, because I don't want to kill y'all. My disobedience brought this storm upon y'all, and I need to just throw me off and figure it out. And so the people went to pray to God, and God did not stop the wind from raging, so they threw Jonah off the boat. They throw Jonah off this boat, and the Lord already had a well waiting on him. And the Bible says that he went into the well. In this well, he was in there for 3 days, and he was in there for 3 nights. It wasn't until Jonah prayed, and when Jonah prayed, and he got back in right standing with God, the well had to spit him back up. So if I leave you with anything, we still talking about shaking back. Tell your neighbor, we still shaking back. We still shaking back. We shaking back and we doing it real bad. If I have to leave you with anything, it's this. God is a restorer to all, and there is nothing that anybody in this room can do that will make him not love, show compassion. It's nothing you can do to keep God from loving you. That's an everlasting thing. However, there are things that you can do to step out of his will. So I don't know about y'all. I want to be in the will of God. I want to be in the will of God all the time, no matter where I am. And you're never too young. People think that's for older people. That's for everybody. That's even for you. As a young adult, as a child growing up, there were things that I had and I had to do. And I had to do them because that was the will of God concerning my life. I just want y'all to know that there is nothing that God cannot revive. There is nothing that God cannot restore. Nothing. He'll do it. Some of us don't understand why we have some of the consequences that we have in life. And it's because sometimes we're simply just disobedient. It's the white lies. We've all told them. White lies. It's the just not being fully honest, stuff like that. And then you have a group of people that suffer just in the name of the Lord. That suffering don't come just because you do things bad. Sometimes suffering comes because you absolutely did everything right. And some of y'all have to understand that, like Job, you are considered. God considered you. And how did he consider Job? He knew that no matter what happened, Job was not going to curse God and die. He just was not going to do it. So he gave the devil permission. He said, hey, go check her out. You can do everything to her but kill her. Because it doesn't matter what you do to her. It doesn't matter how you break her heart. It doesn't matter how you bully her. It doesn't matter how you look over her. It doesn't matter how she feel like she's not loved. It doesn't matter how if your daddy walked out and you angry, you have rejection, you have pride, you have all of these things. It does not matter about that because there is nothing that's going to make this person curse me and die. So you have full range, but you just can't kill this person. And sometimes that's just it. God thought so much of you that he considered you for the road that you're on. And that's a heavy reality as a young adult. That's a very heavy reality that you're considered. There are grown people that can't even stand in being considered. They don't understand what being considered come with. And then you add the gifts that the Lord has given each of you. Some we have prophets, we have teachers, we have dancers, we have preachers, we have whatever it is, then that also add to it. So no matter how old you are, no matter what you're going through, no matter what's going on, the Lord will cover you, but you have to be in right standing. Anybody want to be in right standing? Y'all are real quiet. Anybody want to be in right standing? Before I leave, I just want to tell y'all that some of y'all know my testimony, some of y'all don't. I grew up uptown New Orleans. My parents, they were not together. My grandfather actually went to church, so I went to church with my grandfather, not necessarily my mom all the time. And was going to church, grew up in church, been in church my whole life, and was raped in the church by a leader in church. That was the first time I dealt with something like that, and I was in the 6th grade. Person totally took my innocence. I felt like I was worthless. I felt like what reason would I have to live? And prior to that, I had taken a purity vow before the Lord. They had a program where you take this purity vow and you stay a virgin until you married. And we had this whole wedding ceremony, and it was good. I thought it was a great idea. And then this happens. And so in the 6th grade, I find myself dealing with shame, embarrassment, not feeling like I'm enough, feeling like I'm worthless because I made a vow and I felt like I didn't keep it even though it was taken away from me. And so that's just the 6th grade. On top of dealing with school, trying to fit in because I am very different. I've always been very different, but I didn't like people to notice my weirdness, so I tried to dim down my light so that I can roll with them. When the whole time they should have been rolling with me because I was the leader. That's 6th grade. And then I get up to 16, and I got pregnant with my daughter. Her dad decided, I don't want to be with you. Well, actually, nope. I broke up with him before I found out I was pregnant, and then I found out I was pregnant. And then I tried to work it out. He was much older than me. I was in school. He was not. And so he didn't have time for children. I was a child to him at that point. He had got what he wanted already, and he didn't want no children. And I was just like, nope, I'm going to keep my baby, and I'm going to go on. So now I have to deal with shame from being raped, and now I'm pregnant. But more than anything, I had to deal with it because I have to show up to church. I felt like this is pressure I put on myself. I don't want them to look at me that way. I don't want them to judge me. I don't want them to, you know, some of the parents kept their kids away from me because they didn't want their daughter to be pregnant. So now I have to deal with heartbreak from friends. My friends that was my friends wasn't my friends anymore. We had to sneak and have conversation. We had to sneak and talk on the phone and all of those things. And so now I feel like I created this mess. Got older and was violated by my father. And so now I have an identity crisis. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm called to. I don't understand. I'm in college. I go to college. I was going to Tulane University, and then the storm happened, and so I moved to Houston. Then I went to Minneapolis. I was going to the University of Minnesota, and then I get sick unto death almost. They can't figure out what's wrong with me. They can't figure out why we can't get this situation settled. They can't figure this out. So at this time, now I'm suicidal. What possibly would I have to live for? I'm always sick. I've been raped. I've been abused. I've been all of these things. And every time I went through something else, it created another strong man. Like, when I say strong man, meaning heaviness. I begin to deal with heaviness. And then when you deal with a strong man, say you're heavy. What comes along with being heavy is suicidal thoughts, torn spirit, pity, self-pity, self-sabotage, pride. All of these things come along with that. So now I'm in my early 20s, and I am just not okay. At all, I'm not okay. But what I did was I kept running. As long as I was moving, I was doing totally fine. Until one day, I had to really have a conversation with God. And I had to let him know, like, God, I don't want to carry these things. It's weights. The Bible says to lay aside every weight that so easily beset you. That could be a big weight. That could be a small weight. It can be a medium weight. It doesn't matter what the weight is. It was never meant for us to carry weights. Some of us in here work out. When you're working out, how does it feel when you carry weights? It's pretty heavy, right? Yeah, and so, but that's how we look in the natural. We walk around and we have all of these weights. We carry the weight of somebody bullying us. We carry the weight of somebody not feeling like we're great. We carry the weight of trying to fit in. We carry the weight of all of these things, and then it creates other small problems. And so eventually I went to God and I said, God, I know you to be a restorer. And I know that you can restore all things. And he did just that. I've watched God restore time and time and time again. So I don't ever want you to think that there's ever a day that you cannot experience God restoration. Restoration can come over and over and over and over. It doesn't matter. But your heart posture have to be right. And you have to have a repentance heart. Some of us just need to have a conversation with God. Some of us need to just dump that weight on God. Wherever it is, it doesn't matter. So at this time, before I get ready to go, I do want to open the altar. If you feel like you want prayer, you can come up. If you feel like you want more of his anointing, more of his presence, if you feel like today is your day of shaking back, shaking those things off of me, shaking the fear, shaking the anxiety, shaking the depression, shaking the things that causes you to think the way you think, thoughts that's not godly, perversion, all of it. If you feel like that's something that you want prayer for, the altar is open. Nobody don't have to be ashamed.